Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Two decent heavyweight fights for the first quarter of 2021 in the United States are in the works, according to Mike Coppinger. The first involving Robert Helenius and Adam Kownacki. Kownacki looking to get his revenge there, and also Otto Wallin versus Dominic Breazeale. And Breazeale was last sighted being knocked out by Deontay Wilder in mid-2019. So we'll start with Coppinger's tweet about the first fight, Robert Helenius versus Adam Kownacki. So this pair, they actually met early in 2019, and Robert Helenius got an upset, stopping Adam Kownacki and derailing sort of his bid for a heavyweight title. So this shapes as pretty much a repeat or revenge type scenario. Helenius was brought in as the opponent at the time. Wasn't expected to win, but he did so. So the tweet here from Mike Coppinger says, sources, Robert Helenius and Adam Kownacki are slated to meet in a heavyweight rematch in the first quarter of 2021. Helenius shocked Kownacki via 4th round TKO in March. Now Kownacki will have a shot to avenge his lone pro defeat. PBC fight, so either Showtime or Fox. So this is actually an interesting rematch, because heading into that first fight, the majority of fans sort of thought, well, this is going to be a cakewalk for Adam Kownacki, despite Robert Helenius having power and Kownacki not having a lot of defense. And Helenius, obviously, you can see here on screen, this is actually some footage that Charles Martin shot ringside of the fight and posted to a social media, so I am using this fair use and all that sort of stuff. But Kownacki at this point was not doing too well. He'd already sustained quite a bit of damage, and this is the sort of closing sequence of that fight. So Kownacki, hopefully he's been in the gym working on a few things, but also he's going to come in better shape, because for the Helenius fight, as well as a few others prior to that, he was in the 260s and he was defending it publicly, saying it didn't matter what his weight was, he was getting the job done, and, you know, judge him on the performance. So off the back of that performance against Helenius, well, we could judge him and again say, because we'd been saying it beforehand, that Kownacki, for a guy who's, 6'2", 6'3", 265, that's just too heavy for him, and that's carrying unnecessary rubble. It doesn't actually really assist him. It actually slows him down and makes him a bit more of a hittable target. I always thought that his better weight was against Artur Spilka, where he was in the low 240s, and that's more whereabouts, you know, he should be. The sort of putting on an extra 20 or 30 pounds, that sort of stuff, does him no favours. And as it was for the Chris Arreola fight, he admitted that he cut some water weight ahead of that fight just to get into the 260s. So make of that what you will. But really, he also needs to be working on his defensive prowess ahead of this rematch, because, as I mentioned ahead of the first fight, and it's still a factor, even though Helenius is an aging fighter, he's a bit faded from his prime, and he was a guy that never really delivered on the promise until that win over Adam Kownacki. He's a guy with big punching power, and if his hands are okay, he's always had some hand trouble, he's a guy who can crack. And if Adam Kownacki hasn't worked on trying to slip some punches, trying to not just block them with his face, then it could be a situation where he's in for a bit of punishment. But as we know, against other fighters, Adam Kownacki has been a bit of a swarmer. Come forward, he's pretty basic, but he is very effective. You know, against guys like Charles Martin, Chris Arreola, also Gerald Washington, he's got the job done. He's actually got a decent resume in the heavyweight division. For all his frailties defensively, he's come through those fights, and obviously against Charles Martin, he was fading down the stretch of that one. But if he can actually put together some, you know, defense, he's going to make it a much harder proposition in the rematch for Robert Helenius. He can't just sort of hang that chin out there and think, you know, look, I can take anything, walk through anything to get to Robert Helenius, that I can take 5 shots to get off 2 of my own. And Robert Helenius, he's by no means a guy that's unbeatable. He has been beaten before. He can be outboxed, but he is in of himself a big unit, and he's got power, and if you don't respect that power, you can come off second best, as Adam Kownacki found. But I think Robert Helenius will probably try to do much of the same again. He is the bigger guy. He'll be trying to work that jab, throw right hands, and really try to just take the stuffing out of Adam Kownacki. And if Kownacki's coming in heavy again, which I hope he's not, that's only going to help Robert Helenius' cause. But for many reasons, I like this fight, and the reason Helenius is going to be featuring on a PBC card is that they had an option on his fight should he have beaten Adam Kownacki, of which he of course did in March 2019. So I like this fight. There's a lot of interesting storylines. That whole repeat revenge. Can Kownacki come back better? Can he look better defensively? We know what he can do on the offensive end. He does like to throw a lot of volume. He does like to sort of just outwork his opponents. But also one of the things that if this fight goes deeper, how's his stamina? And that's the thing. With a couple of his fights, he has sort of faded down the stretch. Obviously with this one, didn't really become, too much of a factor, although after the first 3 or 4 rounds, that's when he starts to slow down. So hopefully he is coming well-conditioned, well-prepared, because I want to see a good fight. I want to see the best version of Adam Kownacki, and I'm sure he's got a fire in him after that loss, and there has been some stuff that he's posted on social media, that he's reflected, all that sort of stuff. I want to see that put into action. And we haven't actually seen too much of him sort of training clip-wise in recent months. So I do hope he has been preparing well, that he is going to come in shape, because if he comes in, high 250s, 260s, something like that, I think that is a plus for Helenius, who, I wouldn't discount him being able to repeat, but this is a fight where Adam Kownacki, if he makes some adjustments, he can totally get his revenge. So I do see this as another highly competitive fight. And let's not sort of, with that first fight, make out that it was all one-way traffic, because Adam Kownacki, in some of those early rounds, was having a lot of success. He just started to take too much punishment, and it started to wear him down, and he ended up breaking down and get taken out. If he can actually, sustain less punishment early on and be a bit more smarter about what he's doing in there, he's certainly in this fight and can win it. I like the fight. How about you? Let me know your thoughts on this one. And then if we go to this other fight, I'll get to the tweet first, because there were a couple of things here I thought, don't quite agree with. But he says, this is Mike Coppinger, sources Otto Wallin and Dominic Breazeale have agreed to a heavyweight clash set for February on Showtime. Coin flip bout that shapes up as a slugfest. Won't be the headline bout. So it's not the headline bout, but that it won't be a headline bout, I should say. That's the issue for me. One, I don't think it's a coin flip bout. I think Otto Wallin is a serious favourite for this, but also a slugfest. I mean, I don't know if Mike Coppinger's really seen too much of Otto Wallin. He's not really a slugfest type of guy. Sure, you have a couple of performances, or a performance against Tyson Fury where Tyson Fury made it a bit ugly and more of a slugfest, but that was because of the cut to his own eye. Otto Wallin is more of a finesse fighter. He's a guy that's going to, probably for this fight in particular, be working from the outside, trying to pick apart Dominic Breazeale. He's obviously a southpaw. He's got good boxing skills. He's not the biggest puncher. He's not going to get into a slugfest with Dominic Breazeale, because that's the sort of fight, the only sort of fight that Dominic Breazeale can win. Otto Wallin, on the back of his boxing skills, is going to look to outpoint him. So Breazeale's going to be throwing punches. Otto Wallin's going to be looking to slip those punches, counter punch. He'll be looking to use angles, use movement, use the ring. This is not going to be a slugfest. So I don't know what Mike Coppinger's been smoking, because clearly he hasn't watched too much of Otto Wallin and the way he likes to fight in an ideal situation, which is not a slugfest. But actually, in terms of this fight for Breazeale, we haven't cited him since mid-2019 when his soul was taken by Deontay Wilder in a round. And Otto Wallin, he's been very inactive since a loss to Tyson Fury, which he got a lot of credit from. Sure, he lost the fight, but he was certainly in that fight due to the cuts. He was able to touch up Tyson Fury at times, but ultimately he lost that one. He got outboxed, didn't get a decision, and it wasn't, I don't think it was really too controversial in terms of the points. You can make an argument about the cuts. Should it have been ended? Should Otto Wallin have got the win on that basis? But since then, he's just had the one fight, and that was in August 2020 against Travis Kaufman. Ultimately, Kaufman got injured in that one, so it was over in 5 rounds. But that was also a case that Otto Wallin wasn't in some sort of slugfest with Travis Kaufman. He was relying on his boxing. For the most part, he was just looking to pick apart Travis Kaufman, and this is what he's going to do to Dominic Breazeale. Breazeale's got the height and the reach here, but Otto Wallin is a slippery and tricky southpaw. He's got good skills, and I think actually this is the sort of good mid-tier type fight that Otto Wallin has been needing. In all honesty, I think Dominic Breazeale is a fading force. He's no longer a top 30 fighter in my view. I think that his durability has actually really suffered. He's been, for a guy that's only got 22 fights, he's been in a lot of wars. He's taken a lot of punishment. So I think this is the sort of right fight at the right time for the 30-year-old Otto Wallin against the 35-year-old Dominic Breazeale. I mean, Breazeale's just got a lot of miles on the clock. He hasn't looked good in some of his recent fights, and obviously he was brutalized by Deontay Wilder. Wallin doesn't have that sort of one-punch power that a Wilder does, but over rounds, he's going to be beating up Dominic Breazeale, taking the stuffing out of him. And I think this one either goes to a decision to Otto Wallin, where it's like a 9-3, 10-2 type of situation, with maybe Breazeale having the odd success, or I wouldn't even discount a later round stoppage for Otto Wallin. I don't really sort of hold much hope for Dominic Breazeale in this one, just because I think he really is on the decline, and the rapid decline. He's just got too much miles on the clock now. I think his durability is gone. I wouldn't be surprised if Otto Wallin is able to hurt him at some point later in the fight. I think this one is not the coin flip bout that Mike Coppinger sort of portrays it to be, and it certainly won't be a slugfest, I don't believe. Over time, it might end up being a bit of a beatdown, but not a slugfest per se. So what do you make of these fights? Otto Wallin, Dominic Breazeale, that's apparently going to be happening for February. And then also you have Robert Helenius versus Adam Kownacki, a rematch. So that's looking likely for the first quarter of 2021. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.